This is an incredible thing to me, Mr. Hightoff. You know, I have prosecuted appeals for a lot of people, and I did it pro bono. I don't have a license to practice law, and I did it for people who couldn't get a lawyer. They were turned away from legal aid in Davenport. They were turned away by every Social Security litigator in the area. When I took Wanda Butler into Iowa and Illinois, 100-mile radius around the Quad Cities, every Social Security litigator, and I could because I had a car then, David Bain won't even give me back my car. And the police won't even take a report. You know, that's Grand Theft Auto. He got everything of mine. He got everything I had. For 3 years, DHS starved me. They started to do that process. They tried to attempt that process in 2007. They tried to do it before, but in 2007, I received a number of documents, at least one every month, from January to August. And I filed an appeal, and they didn't want to do that for me. And you know what? I couldn't get legal aid to help me with that. But you know, God must have made this happen, because I finally was going to go have an appeal on my own hook with DHS in August. The night before I was to go have my telephone appeal, I was arrested on a false felony charge. A felony charge which went to court. I had to fire my attorney in front of the judge, who would not allow me my wish that he just leave the freaking courtroom. And the judge allowed me to explain this in narrative, which you know is not a usual thing. And Mr. Wolf objected. But what could Mr. Van Zee, who's a very fair guy, do? Because when it came time for my direct examination by my attorney, the first words out of this son of a bitch's mouth, this drunken attorney I was forced to have in 3 cases, he didn't have any questions for me. So Mr. Wolf was overruled, and I showed the jury my evidence, which was a transcript of a phone call which was supposed to depict me threatening to shoot somebody, but that's not what it was at all. And the state's witness, who was a chronic drunk and has been picked up almost 24 times when I last checked, and that was before this trial. This woman, Wanda Elias, drives around without a seatbelt, gets stopped, and when they pull her out of her car, she's drunk. And her husband is a rich guy, and they own a lot of property in the Calamus area, and this woman was the state's witness against me. And the other witness against me is Steve Cundiff. And I was able to use my website to show that Steve and Cundiff lied to the jury. You know, the only person who gets accused of making false reports and lying has been me. I proved in a court that the state's witness was committing perjury, and that the head of the narcotics squad in Clinton County was lying about how long he had known me and about what our relationship had been for nearly a decade, because I had recordings. And you know, every time I was looking at license plates that were registered in Clinton. I'm seeing these license plates in Rock Island, Illinois at 4 o'clock in the morning, where people are sitting in this barbershop that's owned by the Brooks family, and Mr. Terry Brooks used to be the First Ward Alderman in Rock Island. And I kind of like to think that it was the things that I wrote about him on the website, which I could prove are the reason he no longer has what he was expecting to be lifetime tenure with city administration. And for 9 months, on January of 2007, they told me they were going to lower my food stamps to $10 a month because I was allegedly receiving $1,000 a month. And do you know who told DHS that? Nobody did, because I wasn't receiving Social Security in the amount of $1,000 a month. I was getting a lot less than that. The next month, I got less. Their report said that the federal government told them I was getting less than I was actually getting, and for some reason they wanted to use that to decrease my food stamps. That went on until August. And when I was arrested in August on a false charge that I beat at trial myself, I couldn't do my telephone appointment. And I promptly received notice that since I didn't appear for my telephone hearing, I lost. 10 days later, I received my full food stamp amount without any argument, and it went on from there. Now, I don't know how that happened, but it happened. So I even win shit with social agencies when I don't show up. Now, I'll tell you, I'll bet that never happened to you. And I'll bet that even though you're an accomplished lawyer, you got a law degree and everything, I'll bet you haven't won every hearing and appeal you've had in front of any court. I've never lost when I've been allowed to represent myself. That's why, after I won Wanda Butler's appeal, an appeal which was supposed to be totally unwinnable, with evidence, I brought evidence into your offices in Davenport, wherein the payee bragged to my answering machine that she'd never given Wanda any money and never would. You guys wouldn't take her case. And there was no freaking conflict of interest, except maybe that she's black. You wouldn't take her case. No, I don't know that. I have no idea of that. Because, I've been living in the street for most of the time that we've been communicating. I meet a lot of black people. And you know what? They all got the same story to tell me about Legal Aid of Davenport. Now, I'm not saying that there are white people who, for some reason or another, Legal Aid of Davenport doesn't want to discriminate against. Because I don't talk to them about that. So don't tell me what I know is true and what isn't true. I know that because I won Wanda Butler's appeal, my right of administrative remedy was removed from me with Social Security. I know that. And because of that, I spent 2 years in federal lockdown because of legal aid. Their refusal to do something that my entitlements call for. So don't tell me that I know, that you know what I know is true. Because I'm looking at a different aspect of it. I'm looking at the aspect of being victimized by everyone. I've got two versions of a letter from Christine Alexander. One in which she tells me I will be arrested if I go into Calamus, and another one that has that part deleted. Word processors are really a wonderful thing, aren't they? Exact same letter, except the part where legal aid is telling me that if I go to Calamus, I will be arrested. That really sucks, Mr. Hightoff. And right now, I happen to know, because Baltimore told me, that Social Security has 60 days to grant me an appeal. Well, that 60 days was over nearly a year ago.
That's an appeal from a decision. You haven't got a decision yet.
Well, no, they're supposed to give me a decision. They're supposed to give me a decision about appealing.
I mean, to appeal, you have to have a decision, and they haven't issued one yet.
Yeah, I did get a decision, dude. They stopped my money. They stopped my money for no reason after I had paid them everything. They took everything out of Dave Bain's bank account that they said he owed me, but they let him keep $7,000 of that money. Look at the record, dude. He took all of my money out of the bank. He only that was nearly 19 or 20.
That's the guy that took the Martin guitars?
Yeah. That guy used his credit card thing in his business because he had my credit card and my debit card, and he just ran it through his machine every month, and he withdrew all of my money from that bank. I didn't tell him to do that. And Social Security recovered $11,000 from him.
He's an attorney that represented you, right?
What?
Bain?
No, he's the guy. No, he's the guy that told me he would. I signed a contract with Mr. Bain. He was going to keep my equipment for me until I got out of prison. And he knew I didn't have any money. On the contract I wrote, which he gladly accepted, had my name on it, it says for the sum of $1 that he agrees to store my equipment and give it back to me when I get out of prison. And he would refuse to do that. The feds knew he took all my money. And you know what? They took $11,000 out of his bank account and left him with $7,000, and the other $2,000 Mr. Weindrich extorted from me when I got out of prison. They let Mr. Weindrich keep that too. Well, okay, look, you're a Kornya's supervisor, right?
Yes.
Well, you make him fucking do something. You supervise his ass. You make him sit down and either get on the goddamn blower or start writing letters, just like I did for my clients. I did that. No one who I ever represented had to go through this shit because I didn't allow it. And you shouldn't allow it
I
either.
am the person that you talked to with complaint about how I'm representing you. I got your message on Friday. We were in a manager meeting all day, by the way.
Yeah, well, you know, you look, I don't care. I can't communicate with that. I can't
I'm looking
communicate.
at an email. Well, I would have to email, but I'm looking at your case file in the system. Did you get an email from Alex on December 15th of 2016?
I don't know.
I mean, in that email, he talked to you about what the appeal deadlines were, and he had told you that the average processing time for appeals council appeal decisions is 386 days.
Well,
That
then,
appeal
okay.
filed on March 11th of 2016.
Okay. So then we have until May.
Yes, that's the average time it takes for them to issue decisions. Correct?
Well, I'll tell you what. I don't. Well, you know what? It shouldn't have taken this long. It shouldn't have taken long at all.
I agree with you. That seems like an awfully long time.
Well, yeah, you know why? Because look, the look right now, I've got a federal van in my neighborhood. I hope my landlord doesn't hear me talking about this, but he can't hear me. I'm upstairs, he's downstairs. You know, he's very leery of the feds because of what they've done to me. And you know, everything that I did, I never threatened anybody. I never told a lie. I used federal documents, and I named every federal puke who watched Wanda Butler get raped. And they knew about it. They knew about it as soon as this was happening. When Ruth Butler told them that she gave birth to a child named Wanda, the Justice Department and the Department of Census did an investigation. I don't know how thoroughly they would do one, but they determined that Ruth never had a child born to her named Wanda. And when Ruth answered that inquiry by saying, well, Wanda was delivered by a midwife, you and I both know that midwives have to make out the same kind of documents that an obstetrician has to make out, and those have to be filed in the courthouse. And in no courthouse could the Department of Census find that birth record. So they knew it. Now, here are mandatory reporters. The Justice Department, Social Security. And they both knew what was happening to Wanda because at the age of 10, she told them. And they replied by locking her out of the office and only dealing with the people who were raping her. That's what they did. Well, I represented her in that Social Security appeal, and I had the entire record, and I had the name of every federal and state puke who decided that being a mandatory reporter didn't include reporting for Wanda. And you know, that kind of jives with what I heard from Alex Butler and from Veronica Butler and Linda Butler and all the rest of the Butlers who happen to be Ruth's real children. And they told me they had a deal with the pigs on both sides of the river. They didn't call them pigs, they called them 5-0. I call them pigs. And I call them pigs because I don't want to confuse the pictures of the uniformed insects I took pictures of and displayed on my website. There's a difference between a pig and an officer of the law. And the pigs knew about what was happening. The pigs were helping these people sell dope interstate, and the Justice Department knew it too. A mandatory reporter, every son of a bitch that Wanda Butler informed that she was being raped by these people, had a mandatory duty to help her. And because they didn't, they deserve 5 years in the goddamn slammer. But they're never going to get that because Wanda's black. Now, I expect this to come to an end in another 50 days. I expect to get my full benefit amount, and I expect to get my retro check. I expect that to happen without any further bullshit. And that means I'm no longer going to starve. I'm going to be able to get on a bus. I don't even have money for a fucking bus. I don't have it. And up until last month, after I lied to my special liaison by laying a wolf ticket on her, by saying, I'm going to publish this. I got this recording of one of my website guys who happens to be on the SNAP program talking to somebody in Des Moines who's telling me that everything the local office has done, including changing the amount that I'm supposed to get from the federales on my state documents, just so they can try to lower my food stamp amount. That's a goddamn felony. And somebody should have helped me with that. But you guys didn't want to do that. Now, why is that? How could that possibly be? I took those documents into your office. It was very easy to confirm that I wasn't receiving $1,000 a month. But legal aid didn't want to get involved. Now, I don't know why. Maybe it's because they're jealous. I mean, I doubt that anybody in the legal aid office in Davenport won every appeal they've had with Social Security. Every one they've conducted for themselves and for other people. I won every one of those. I also won every court hearing I had when there was not an attorney to get in the way. But every time I was directly allowed to talk to the judge and represent myself, I walked out of court free until it was decided that I'm not competent enough to represent myself. I need to have a drunken attorney named Bill Vilmont. The last court-appointed attorney who argued against his own client in court is Jack Wolf. And you know what? He argued in front of Nancy Tabor about my receiving documents that from the court that I need for my post-conviction relief. I won that hearing too, and I had the prosecutor and my own attorney arguing against me, and that's why I shit-canned him. Now, I'm being threatened by the judge who's been assigned to preside in this case because he's telling me I just better be cooperative. I'm not going to be cooperative with some shyster who doesn't want to present exculpatory evidence to the goddamn court. Isn't that what attorneys are supposed to look for? And isn't it, and it's against the freaking law to suppress exculpatory evidence. But both the prosecutor and my own attorneys so far have been allowed to do it. And you guys don't even want to get evidence for my own case, and this would apply to this case. My counselor at IMCC notified Social Security in 2008 that I was locked up, and it's mandatory for them at that point to stop my money. But they refused to do it. You could get those records. We're not talking about a criminal case. We're just talking about records. But you guys want to split hairs because I think you're in bed with the government. Your agency doesn't want to do anything that will mess with the pigs. You don't want to do anything that'll really mess with the federal government. You wouldn't help me with any issue that I had. And even in 1983, when I told Bob Heimer I did not want to appeal Social Security's decision to not grant me Social Security, he decided that I was just too incompetent to know what I was doing. That decision, and then your decision in 1996 not to stand up for me and fight for me when I was relieved of my administrative appeal rights, caused me to be in prison for 2 years in federal custody. You guys did that. So don't tell me you don't get involved in criminal cases because you caused them. But, that's just my point of view. Now, I was told that either you or Kornya was going to be calling me before you left the offices last Friday. But that never happened either, and it very seldom does.
I disagree in my regard. I told you what happened. We were in a management meeting all day.
Yeah. You were in a management meeting all day. You were supposed, so you never returned to the office, and you never got a message.
About a 15-minute lunch break.
Well, there was supposed to be an email there waiting for you. So when you got out of that meeting, you could have spent 5 minutes to call me, instead of me taking 27 minutes and 39 seconds to tell you. I mean, what the fuck's going on? I never had to go through this with my clients. And I'm not even a licensed attorney. I just wouldn't put up with anybody's guff. The first thing I would always, that's what Alex didn't believe me for a year and a half. He didn't believe me until I forced him to do the math. And I happen to know because I went to the bank in Moline where I had my account when the first overpayment accusation that I was supposed to have caused, that's where I had my account. And when Mary Donnelly told me that she would deal with the situation in the appropriate manner, which would have been to stop my checks after my mother had given me, had left me the $24,000 in my account. I took the liberty of making a recording of that. I took that downstairs. I played it through a voice stress analyzer, and that told me, when she said that she would handle it appropriately, that told me she was lying. I went to my bank, and I canceled my direct deposit myself. So a month later, I got 2 checks. They wouldn't stop my money no matter what I did. And they wouldn't stop my money when my counselor, Carlson, told them I was in prison. Now, you could use that information, and it's not dealing with a criminal case. It is information that you can easily obtain, and you could send to Social Security And that would straighten out a lot of shit, wouldn't it? But you don't want to do that. And I don't know why. Because you're not doing a criminal case. You're doing this Social Security thing. And you're just obtaining records. Period. I mean, you've asked me for records, for medical records, including HIV. You know how many times they tested me for HIV in prison? A lot. Just to insult me. Just to insult me.
So, I will talk to Alex. I understand it.
Oh, well, I know I'm not frustrated. I'm just amazed. I mean, it's not like I can call you incompetent. You just refuse to do what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to fight for me. You're supposed to go balls to the wall. However, I know what'll happen to you if you do. You won't be able to practice and you won't be able to do those kind of appeals anymore. Social Security. I know 3 attorneys in the Quad City area who are now prohibited from winning appeals with Social Security because they went balls to the wall and they won. But legal aid won't do that for you. Legal aid won't do that for me. Now, this is not going balls to the wall. You get a subpoena. You get a subpoena for my records from IMCC. Because IMCC, you know, and I know, that it's a federal mandate and a state law that when you go to prison, the prison has to inform Social Security, if you're on Social Security, that you're in prison and not eligible anymore. Now, I tried to do that, but I was told that the Social Security office is not a legal address. I sent 3 letters to Social Security, one to Clinton County, Iowa, one to Davenport, Iowa, and one to Baltimore. Those were all filed in the round file because in '96 I was prevented from directly dealing with Social Security about administrative remedies. You should have helped me with that. Your agency should have helped me with that. I didn't do anything to deserve that, except help people. I didn't do anything to do that. So this is not a request. You're supposed to be my attorneys. You're supposed to get evidence wherever it can be found. In this case, you're going to have to get it from IMCC. I demand you do that. If you guys don't want to do that, then that just means you're in bed with the enemy. That's an easy thing to do. No, you do it. I'm tired of Alex's shit. I explained this to him just like I explained it to you. And you know I'm not bullshitting you. This has nothing to do with criminal. This has to do with my Social Security record. It has to do with a third party, which was the third party has to tell them that. So they had a third party. That third party just happened to be a prison official, a state employee. They didn't even want to take that information from her either. And, by the way, there's something else that we can find out. Let's just suppose we find out that Miss Carlson didn't do that. Well, I don't think that her lax enforcement or non-enforcement of that state and federal regulation has a statute of limitations. So I'd like to know, but I do happen to know that she did tell them, because she has to. If she didn't, she'd be eternally fucked. So I think you can get that document. And then you can use that documented appeal and say, what the hell was going on? That's all you got to do. It'd be fucking easy. As a matter of fact, if you just send them a document with a note that says, what the fuck have you been doing to our client all these years? There won't even have to be an appeal. I'll just get my checks. I'll get my retro check, and I'll get my monthly at full amount. They don't want to take this in front of an administrative law judge. Not with that document. Get it. Instead of fucking your client around and kissing ass. You guys are kissing their asses and you're kicking mine. Okay? I don't want to hear from Alex. I just want to get notification for when you sent that, for when you got that subpoena. All right? Don't take you guys any goddamn trouble to get a subpoena. You're a freaking attorney. You subpoena the goddamn documents. You subpoena my entire prison file. I'd like to see that. You know, I mean, hell. You know what it's like to live for 4.5 years on bread and water? They refused to feed me kosher food. And you know what? I was denied access to the law library. And I was denied access to an attorney. But I still won. My religious rights. I mean, by court order, I won my. But you know, even after the court ordered I'd be fed kosher, I still wasn't. I never got a kosher meal in prison. Oh, wait a minute, I did. When I was being held in Des Moines, before being sent to Leavenworth, they eventually relented and were able to get an actual kosher meal. And I think I got 4 of those. So that's how the system works for me. And the way legal aid is working for me is just, I mean, shit. I told Alex, look, you get a subpoena, you get my records from the prison. Oh no, we don't deal with criminal cases. You're not dealing with a criminal case, that's over. It's a record. It doesn't have anything to do with a criminal case. It's my record in prison. Do you get it? You get this, don't you? That's not a rhetorical question. Lee.
Comment about the details of your case, and Alex is your primary counsel.
Alex is full of shit. Do you get what I'm telling you or not? Do you get... Well, look, what you're asking for is records. You're not asking to get involved in a criminal case.
But they need to be relevant. That's the issue.
What? What's not relevant? The fact that my counselor in prison notified Social Security that they're supposed to cut off my money, but they refused to do it. You don't think that's relative in this case? Are you insane? The fact of my case, the fact of my case is that I'm being fucked around with under false pretenses. The facts concerning this case is that Social Security was notified in 2008 that I was in prison. That's the facts that concern this case. And the facts which reflect very poorly on 3 Social Security offices, is that they refused to recognize Carrie Carson's note to her that she sent from that prison, and they refused to recognize 3 letters that I sent them a few days before I knew I was going to prison. And I told them I was going to prison. But just like in 2002, they decided that they're not going to take that information from me. They're going to continue to send me checks, and then they're going to blame me for the overpayment which they caused. Now, you know that according to Social Security rules, if Social Security causes the overpayment, I don't owe them any money. You know that's a fact, don't you? I mean, I won an overpayment case by citing that regulation. And you're going to tell me that you're not going to win it that way? How the hell did you get to be a lawyer? How the hell did Alex get to be a lawyer? Those goddamn prison records do not concern a criminal case. They concern my record in prison. It's a record. You need it. It's exculpatory evidence. Subpoena it! Jesus fucking Christ! You could have done this 3 years ago, and I wouldn't have gone through any of this. And this is how much dignity you're giving me. This is how much dignity I'm getting from you and from Alex. But the most amount of dignity I ever got from your offices is when Pat, who won't tell me her last name, but Pat, who is a receptionist, she works the phones, and she is not in the director's office, convinced me. I was under the impression for a number of months that she was the director's assistant, but she isn't. She's a gopher, and she answers phones, and her telephone isn't anywhere in the vicinity of where the director is. And that's how much dignity you people have shown me. That you think I'm a mushroom, and you want to keep me in the dark and feed me bullshit. I've won too many of these cases in a row, in fact all of them, to know how full of shit you are. And your bullshit quota has been documented by people that I've talked to in Baltimore. So let's cut the bullshit, dude. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to get a subpoena, and you're going to get my records from IMCC, and you're going to get all of them. And while you're getting those records, you're going to notify IMCC that you know that it is the law that Carrie Carson send notice of my incarceration to Social Security. So it had better be there. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Dad.
This is Dmitry Ivanovich with the naked truth.